Hey everyone, welcome back to our weekly outlook. Today, Sunday, 9th of November. This week released or caused quite a few releases in regards to central bank action, market motivation. However, in the end, the markets did move, yet did not give us a totally new trend, or new trends haven't kind of established. So we shall see how this the current next week is going to perform. In general, the market's motivation in terms of the dollar might be worth a consideration for you, right? So the dollar started appreciating, which we anticipated early on. However, the market's momentum in the end in regards to dollar strength was a bit fading. We shall check the dollar index out, and with that, we could potentially see further motivation here in this market. Yeah. So on the weekly chart, the dollar index started to appreciate. We saw the market kind of going lower. However, at this supportive range, the markets didn't break to the downside. Instead, we might now see that the dollar index is moving towards higher levels. However, the market motivation at the moment looks like it's going to fade at the important technical resistance area. And that means we might see a bit of a fading US dollar, causing potentially a downside momentum in this market. If the dollar weakens, we would see that other currency pairs, or most currency pairs in the end, might change their direction. And that's exactly how we see the current momentum, focusing, say, on, for example, on the pound US dollar currency pair. We said that the market was going to weaken further. We closed our trading position because now the market is trading on top of a very valid and important technical support area. If this zone now gives way, the market might weaken. However, it looks like with the current trend, basically, that upside momentum might emerge. And this upside momentum, based on the dollar weakness for these projected next couple of trading days, we could see that the currency pair is moving higher. So that's basically the same story we see here in this market, as well as other currency pairs. The euro is appreciating slightly, not quite a lot, but we see that there's a bit of a trend towards higher levels visible as we speak. And we saw something remarkable here in the Aussie. Remember, we talked about this early on. We said this technical pin bar candlestick is really expected to cause the market to weaken, basically, which is what happened. However, the market kind of faded with the recent weakness right on top of this support area. Whether the Australian dollar can rise somehow further might be the question. Now, we should talk about the general risk sentiment, because stock markets have started to weaken. Yeah, we saw most indices, S&P 500, the Nasdaq among them, were looking to weaken further. But we see currently the same story is happening as well in these markets. Yeah, so the S&P 500 appreciating on top of a very strong support range. And that zone now in the market or in the chart, you can't see anything much potentially here. But looking at it from this perspective, we can clearly see that the market's candlestick pattern was causing the markets to rise right on top of this 50 moving average. Upside momentum might cause the markets to strengthen further. And guys, that's exactly the story we see in markets in general, right? So technical pin bar candlesticks on top of important support ranges, with the Australian dollar being shaky, but maybe appreciating slightly, could cause the market to strengthen medium term. And furthermore, obviously, with this would happen and cause basically stocks to strengthen to higher levels, as well as the dollar's weakness, the weakness in the greenback kind of underpinning this current trend, causing momentum to maybe shift to the upside. Whether this is enough now to kind of push the markets towards new high points, or to drive markets in general towards new all-time highs, might be the question right now. If we are looking into the crypto space now, we see that Bitcoin has just started to, weaken again. This week has been another negative one. Yeah, so the market sentiment looking not really cool towards higher prices. However, this important support area, which is where the market right now now on Sunday, the last trading day for the week, to start appreciating somehow. And this is just maybe the tricky situation when examining the market's motivation here in the next a couple of trading days. Ethereum doing the same. Ethereum seemingly on track to weaken further. The technical resistance area has not kind of been broken again. Instead, we saw that the market was just not able to trade at this 3,900, 3,800 level. Instead, this zone gave way, causing the markets to basically weaken. And now we see there are certain levels, and this is the next and current upcoming support level, which might drive the markets to the upside. Remember, right? We said we see potential weakness in the dollar. However, medium term, it currently looks like the downside momentum might extend the market's motivation towards the next support level, which would be the 50 moving average right now. They're at way lower area. So these price levels are kind of quite interesting, and these price levels would just potentially also give way if the crypto space in general is set to weaken further, depending on the overall risk sentiment, as we examined before. Yeah, and XRP holding up kind of steady at the moment, I might say, pushing momentum, upside motivation might emerge on top of, again, this 50 moving average. And there we go. We have most of the tokens, most of the coins, which are actually kind of lagging behind quite substantially. Among one of the bigger ones, we shall take a look into Solana, because Solana looking kind of quite weak here. We saw that this shoulder, head, and right shoulder pattern and the current neckline, a break of this neckline might really unleash quite a bit of weaker market motivation, right, in this token. By the way, one of the bigger ones when focusing on the general valuations. Yeah, we could take a look here, and we see that Solana is the sixth in terms of the market cap. Coin market cap obviously reveals some motivation here. Ethereum, Bitcoin obviously leading the show in this regard. What else is new? In general, we see that also precious metals have not really done anything major. Instead, the silver market has been trading in this long, elevated sideways price zone. The market's sentiment has really not given us any insights at the moment, right? So we see that the market is not really giving lower lows, which would be an idea to cause the markets to weaken. Instead, the market has also not giving us lower or new highs, but we are trading towards this rising trend. And right on top, if the market can break this zone, we could see another elevated move and another test to the upside, which potentially might drive this market towards way higher levels. On the weekly chart, we see that this could be on track. We are basically on track to see the market's motivation driving momentum slightly higher. This pin bar from basically last week ended, as we examined before, in a bullish manner. That's at least based on these candlestick patterns. And this week also looks set to kind of drive the market potentially higher. What we need, though, in order to qualify for upside areas, what we need would be another break, another attempt to the upside here in this market. So silver clearly would need to break the 49 psychological round number, 49 US dollar level, in order to kind of unleash further upside. However, and that's the tricky spoiler, basically, that the market's sentiment might kind of be driven again by this technical huge pin bar candlestick, which is at least what we like to focus on for now, expecting the markets to short-term at least fall to some extent. Looking at gold, the market's momentum is kind of quite similar. We also see similar momentum, and we could drive in or mark in whatever certain trend lines, support, resistance zones. The markets in general is just looking kind of quite interesting here in order or in regards to some upside or downside motivation. Same story. Long term, the market looks saturated. We sold our shares in Wheaton Precious Metals. We have about a third of the regular position, the metals trading company, which has been following nicely the uptrend in gold. So we participated in our group, obviously, in this market motivation, running higher prices. But currently, it looks like the market's momentum is just really not keen on doing anything major. To another commodity, we also like to, before forgetting about it, to talk and come right now. And that's clearly the oil market. Oil prices have been rising. This week were kind of quite interesting at first, before the market then in the end was just fading again. And again, same story. We have this support area, which seems to be what the market is currently doing. Despite maybe seeing some upside motivation, we would say and expect that the market is just about to break the lows. And that could be something quite tricky in regards to the oil market, right? If the demand from the economy remains rather on the weaker end, we could see that the market's motivation here in the oil market might be driven again by sort of further weakness, as the market's positivity is really not happening at the moment. However, the positivity might also be seen when focusing on the monthly chart. And that's the topical, the interesting area here, pin bar candlestick pattern. Early in November, we are going lower. If the next week or the week following week, towards the end of November, would be able to kind of cause the markets to rise, we could see something which is obviously happening quite often. Earlier down, end of the month up. And that could be something which is what we would see as a potential chance that the market is expected to rise again somehow further. Another buy stop opportunity here. That's 62.90, 63. Above the 63 price level here, the market might be expected to rise again. And that could be all the way up towards the 66 area. So place a buy stop order might be a worthwhile trend here, and all the way towards the next line here, which is where the 50 moving average kicks in as well. And that's exactly where the market might then start to fade again. So that would give us quite some interesting motivation here for the market to rise. If not, as we said, we could see as well that the market is projected to weaken based on the long-term trend so far. News-wise, for this coming week, we have a few interesting information points or economic calendar entries we like to focus on right now. Claimant count change, so the change in employment could give the pound either a boost or a miss, right? We talked about this. The figure is expected to kind of weaken as compared to the recent release, and that could be something which is quite interesting here. If the claimant count change basically weakens, less people apply for unemployment benefits, it would be positive for the pound, and that's something, it's rather a minor indicator. However, it could be something interesting if the market is better than expected. It could drive prices again in the pound to the upside. Employment data in Australia, again, we've seen this fairly recently. Consumer prices were rising again. That's something worth to consider as well. And then we got the GDP, gross domestic product, rather a backward-looking indicator out of the UK that might give the market a bit of a boost or not. And I might say or not, because the economic demand and the rather shrinking economy in the UK is just currently what causes the market rather to be kind of deviative, right? And the pound to weaken. So focus on this one here alongside the claimant count change might be worth a consideration. And then we got the big array of US data. I might say I don't expect the markets to kind of come out with this, right? So it's kind of quite interesting. Consumer prices would be worth a consideration, but it's a tentative release. And with the shutdown in the US ongoing, producer prices, consumer prices are not expected to be released. On that bombshell, I would rather say that we should and could soon, maybe early next year, see the input or impact of the elevated shutdown in the US. The trust issue in the US economy is kind of evaporating slightly, at least, because big tech companies, as we stated before, have kind of put so much money aside in regards to the AI trend, AI boost. And if this market is not really performing as expected, it could give the markets some negative headlines. Guys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel as usual. We like to see you in our outlooks this week. We're going to focus on markets, of course, as usual, and we will give you further insights should they arise, and another of these 3-minute market videos as well. Talk to you soon. Another quick one here. At least we hope so. See you then. Take care. Bye.